Okay, the meeting of the Water Commissioners is called to order Thursday, March 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and our guests have signed in. Two ladies in the back signed in already. Okay, roll call. Chairman, Ed Johnson, present. Dave Meswar,
Present.
John Kane, present. Randy Brown, DPW Director. Here. Kevin Soper, Water Foreman. Christy Mayette, DPW Office Manager.
Present.
Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Have you reviewed the minutes of the last meeting?
I have. I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? No.
As well, aye.
John Kane. Aye.
Yeah. Okay. Signing of commitments, that is done. We have an elderly rate application for Martin Andrus, 2 Pine Road. He meets all the necessary requirements. Can I have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion to accept the elderly rate application as written.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Ed Johnson, aye.
Dave Meswar, aye.
John Kane. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, so this. Randy, DPW Director's report, please.
Sure. So is that my page there to talk about? Since our last meeting, first item is a water transmission main improvements project. That is with Maurice Concrete Service. They started construction work last week. They're working at the Westfield town line and they're working their way north towards the sprinkler water sewer connection. They do expect that work to be done within about 6 weeks, at least to have the pipeline in, and then there's some surface restoration after that. But they're looking at probably late April, early May completion to that project. Kevin Soper has transitioned back to the water foreman position a couple weeks ago. As you remember, he took another position, but his heart and soul wasn't there, so he asked to move back to the water department, and we're happy to have him back.
Yes, we are.
Item 3, on February 28th, we received our 2022 first quarter haloacidic acid samples that were taken from the Jerry Drive pump station. Those results were at 107.5 parts per billion. This is water that we take, that we purchase from sprinkler water and sewer, and before it gets blended with our water. So unfortunately, those results were high, and sugar was considered a tier 2 water quality violation, which required public notice to the all customers in town. So those customer notices were sent out on March 14th to all the water users. And we did invite sprinkler water and sewer to the meeting tonight. They got a staff over the whole front row here. So we're gonna talk about some of the issues that they're facing and their plans to move forward and address that issue. On March 5th, Ed and myself met with the Select Board and Finance Committee to review the Water Department's FY23 budget request. That is now being discussed by the Select Board and the Finance Committee over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then there'll be a town meeting in the third week in May to vote on the budget. On March 17th, I had a meeting with Feral Gas Blue Vinyl Company about a possible process facility at 686 College Highway. This would be a new commercial user. They would be basically taking propane tanks, refurbishing them, taking all propane tanks in, refurbishing them, cleaning them up, and then refilling and putting them back on the market. Their water usage would be about 1,000 gallons a day at that facility. This is all very preliminary. This is kind of like the first outreach to the town. And they need to make a decision whether they want to move forward with an application to the town planning board for the use at that property. So I'll keep you up to date if that moves forward. Item 6, all of us were working on the process to read meters for our current billing cycle, which ends on April 1st. And we expect those bills to be sent out by by late April. Christy and Kevin are working on our 2021 Consumer Comps report and our annual statistical report. Both those reports should be completed in the next couple of weeks. And at probably the next meeting or two, we'll have the results and we'll talk in more detail about those those numbers from the reports. Let's see, we're still working with Mass DEP and DCR on our water withdrawal permit. There really hasn't been much activity on this since late last year. I had a discussion with DCR about the water needs forecast. They're still working on that. I probably should check in and see what the status is, but that's kind of,
Yeah, we should, would, yeah.
yeah, that has not moved much lately. The next item is a carryover from last couple meetings, 55 Salem West Road. There was the issue where the looked like the meter was tampered with. So the owner has not done these remedies that are required. I did meet with him 2 days ago, and he mentioned that this was on his radar, and he reached out to us at some point to do the inspection. We do relate that service, so we'll see how that goes. And Kevin will certainly be involved in checking that out when that work does happen.
Good.
And the last item is Emil from Sigma Water is continuing his backflow inspections. Next page has all the work orders since our last meeting. Couple water turn-ons. Kevin and the guys have been busy with meter inspections and MXU checks as we're getting ready for our billing cycle.
Okay. Now that north, 92 North Long, was that a new meter put in? Or was that
Yes.
just, okay. So the list has got to be getting down there then, right? On the new meters,
Yes,
got to be getting down there, okay.
all active services have meters.
They do, okay, good, finally. Okay, Randy, you want to introduce our guest from Springfield, please?
Yeah, might as well. So we have a team from Central Water and Sewer here. Jim Laurel, Director of Operations. You want to introduce your team, Jim? And then if you guys want to come on up, you do have a presentation they'd like to talk to you about as well.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Jim Laurel, I'm Director of Water Operations for Springfield Water and Sewer. I want to thank Randy and the board for inviting us to come tonight and talk about disinfection byproducts. We have a brief presentation for everybody.
Great.
Which will be given by some of the team here. The people that are with me are Christina Jones. Christina is the Deputy Director of Water Operations. Lisa Tarnauskas is a Process Control Analyst who works at Los Parish Filters at the treatment plant. Katie Shea is an Education and Outreach Coordinator with us, and Jamie Bartak is our Public Communications Manager. So with that, I think the presentation, Jamie will lead off, and then Lisa and Christina will run through the slides. No, we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. So we do have the presentation on the website, so Christy can control it with her mouse. So just tell her when to move the next slide, and so everybody can see it on Zoom as well.
Is there a place that we should stand for the people that are speaking to the slides? Or
This follows you wherever you are in the building, so you can stand.
no pressure.
But if you want to, wherever you want. it's fine.
Hi, I'm Jamie. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us. I actually don't have too much to say. I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Director of Water Operations, Christina Jones, and Elise to talk about the situation behind our disinfection byproducts. The public notice that people of Southwick are receiving about disinfection byproducts. Southwick receives a small amount of their drinking water from us, but it does impact regulations. We have all the regulations. So we'll talk a little bit about why that situation has happened and what we're doing to fix it. So I'll turn it over to.
That's a good thing to watch the
Sure.
show.
Change where we are.
Wherever you want.
Thank you for having us. We go to the next slide. We'd like to give an overview of our drinking water system. So we draw water from the Cobble Mountain Reservoir, which is a 22 billion gallon reservoir out near Blandford, Massachusetts. And we treat it at our West Parish Filtered Water Treatment Plant in Westfield. We've got 2 treatment trains at our treatment plant. We have our primary treatment train, which is our rapid sand filtration plant, which dates back to 1970s. And we coagulate, flocculate, and then filter that water directly through our rapid sand filters. We often augment that flow when needed through our slow sand filtration plant, which dates back to the 1920s. So again, the rapid sand filtration plant is our primary plant, and then we augment when needed through the slow sand filters. After water is filtered, we then treat it with corrosion control and chlorination chemicals, and then it flows down to our proven storage tanks, which are over in Agawam, through our transmission mains, and it's along that transmission main that we have the interconnection south. Slide. And Elise is going to talk a little bit about disinfection byproducts and why they're forming in our system.
So this is a handy graphic to show how they're formed. So it starts in the watershed where natural organic matter from the forest can get washed into the reservoir through rainfall, which carries it from the forest or into the reservoir, the water supply. And then we get our water supply and it goes to the treatment plant where the filter some of the organic matter, but some of it is left behind. So what's left behind can react with the chlorine that we use for disinfection, and those two react in form of DEPs. And as that water flows out to the distribution system, they continue to form, so it increases the amount of DEPs in the water throughout the distribution system. Next slide. Haloacetic acids, there's five compounds that are regulated with the disinfection byproduct rule. So like I said, they form from natural organic matter that's found in watershed, forests. So the picture down here is just kind of what we mean by natural organic matter. Leaf material, soil, sediments, and stuff that's found naturally out in the watershed. And then it can be washed downstream. This is a picture from last June. You can see how rapid this stream is flowing into Powder Mountain Reservoir. So washing all of that organic material into Powder Mountain Reservoir. And then we take that water, we filter it, and then we treat it with chlorine for disinfection. And that's when people form. So DEPs, which are haloacetic acids and total trihalomethane, were first regulated in 1999, and then those regulations were updated in 2012, which included an MCL, a maximum contaminant level of 60 parts per billion for HA5s, which is calculated over 4 quarters averaged together. So it's a running locational annual average of each site specifically. And the MCL was determined kind of like a balance between adequate disinfection and minimum long-term health effects. There's a risk of health effects over a long-term consumption of water. Go to the next slide.
So a couple of treatment challenges that we faced this year that have changed the quality of the water and interconnection. The first was that we had that record rainfall in July and August, a couple of hurricanes in August, and that flushed a lot of natural organic matter into our tributaries and then into our reservoirs and into our raw water to the plant. When we saw that higher natural organic matter coming in, that forced us to increase our chlorine dose to meet the chlorine demand that was introduced by those organics. And that additional chlorine plus additional organics resulted in higher disinfection byproducts in the system. And this is something we've also been struggling with on and off since 2018 or so, but was particularly bad this last year. The second thing that happened was that back in January, we experienced a catastrophic failure of one of our 6 rapid sand filters. The underdrain system completely failed and it's currently down and out of operation and under construction. We're working to repair that as quickly as we can, but it's projected to not be repaired until July. So it'll be a little while before we can bring our rapid sand filter plant back to 100% capacity. The problem that this introduces is that it forces us to rely on our slow sand filtration plant in the meantime, that 1920s era plant. And the slow sand filtration plant is really only removing about 7% of the incoming natural organic matter right now. It's winter, this might improve as things get warmer, but that's what it's doing right now. And that's in comparison to the 60% removal we typically get from our rapid sand filtration plant. We've also been forced to increase our production with the slow sand filter plant to about 45% of our total production. So we're doing about 45% with our slow sands and 55% with our rapid sands. So it puts us in kind of a tough spot. And Elise is going to show you a couple of graphs in the next couple slides.
So like Christina just mentioned, a lot of the severe weather events since 2018 have really been impacting water treatment. So this is showing the blue bars are monthly total rainfall in our watershed, going back to 2018 up until most recent. And the red line is the level of organics that are in the raw water. It's shown by UV254, which is a very effective method of quantifying how much organic material is in the water. So you can see how when we have significant rainfall, like back in 2018, in late summer, we had a spike in UV254, which is increased in organics. And then 2019 and 2020, we had like less severe rainstorms. 2020 was a drought. We had significantly lower organic levels. And then in August, we had a lot of rainfall. We had an initial spike in August and September for organics, and then dropped down in the fall. And then once the reservoir turned over and the water became mixed in the Cowell Mountain Reservoir, we saw another significant spike in organic levels. We're still at the same level right now, and they haven't really come back down to normal, which we used to see them coming back down, but they stayed high since the reservoir turned over in like early December. You can go to the next slide. So this is a chart that shows the chlorine dose that we dose at the West Parish treatment plant, which is the blue line, and then the red line is the organic levels in our influent raw water coming into the plant. You can see how they kind of correlate with each other. The increase in organic material in the water usually creates more chlorine demand, so we have to increase our dose at the treatment plant to compensate for the loss of the chlorine being consumed, so that we can keep a piece of out in our treatment in our distribution system. Like we've been saying, natural organic matter and chlorine in the water, and they are added together. If they're both elevated, we're going to see elevated DPPs. So like what happened to your sample site at Terry Drive, there was a result of 108 parts per billion back in February, which led to your exceedance of the locational running in. You can see these are the locational running annual averages going back to Q1 of 2020. And this red line is that MCL of 60 parts per billion. So this past quarter in February, you have exceeded it. And since it's an average of 4 quarters, it's going to take a while to average out this 108 results. So this situation might go on for a little bit longer until results are down for multiple quarters. So even next quarter, you have a low result, it's not going to average out these results. So it might linger for a little bit longer. Next year.
So this has been an ongoing problem for us since 2018, I mentioned, and so we've been working to optimize the system we have now as best we can to keep those levels as low as we can. And one of the things that we do is we daily look at our chlorine dosage and keep it as low as we can while maintaining adequate residuals in the system. We also flush in our system to just try to push out some of that older age water so that we don't need to keep our chlorine doses as high at the treatment plant. We optimize our coagulant dosing so that we can maintain our 60% NOM removal target rate. Again, that's with our rapid sand filtration plant. And we monitor those UV 254 levels so that we can monitor what kind of organics we're sending out to the system. And then we try to reduce how much we use those slow sand filters that are reducing less of the natural organic matter than the rapid sand filtration plant is. But right now, until we get that rapid sand filtration plant back online, we need to continue to rely on the slow sand filters more than we would like to. We also do disinfection byproduct monitoring by analyzing in-house our TOC, DOC, and TTHMs in our effluent water. Go to the next slide. But again, this is a long-term problem for us, and so we're really working toward a long-term solution. So we are in progress and underway on a design and construction of a new treatment facility that will be able to remove enough NOM to keep us within regulatory limits. We're currently constructing a clear well and backwash pump system that will operate both with our existing plant, and then it's also the first stage of the new treatment facility. And we're in design right now, an aggressive design schedule for an 80 MGD conventional treatment plant. And this plant will have a dissolved air flotation clarification process, which is a process we don't currently have in our rapid sand filtration plant. And this will dramatically improve our ability to remove those organics. We're also designing it with 10 filtration trains. It will be able to meet the full capacity of the system, so we won't need to rely on the rapid sands or the slow sand filtration plants. And we're funding it with WIFIA and SRF financing. Estimated cost is $238 million. And we're required by our WIFIA financing to have this plant online by the end of 2027. It's about 5 years out. It feels like a long way out, but we have a lot of work ahead of us to design and build a plant and get it running again. The next couple pictures, you can just kind of flip through them, are just a couple pictures of the construction of our clear well structure. The contractor right now is completing the demolition of 3 of our old slow sand filters to make room for that clear well structure. So ground is broken and we're actively working to improve our treatment system so that we can provide water that meets in regulatory compliance. So that was all. We just wanted to talk through all that with you today, and we welcome any questions.
No, you guys, I mean, I think they covered all the bases.
I think they did a very good job.
I think, a couple of just key points, obviously there's something that we're all aware of and working towards, a fix towards. But it's gonna be several years, 2027 is, that's the end goal, but between now and then, and we may see more of these violations come through. And we've already violated Q2. We haven't even taken the samples, but because the last 3 quarters are so high, even if we get 0 in Q2, we still violate.
Right.
So you're still gonna, so that triggers everything we just did, the public notice, if they send out once again. So just so everyone's aware of that. Okay.
When's the backwash pump project going to be completed? When it's under construction?
That's scheduled for, I think, early 2024, maybe a couple years out. And just one of the challenges with getting that completed, I say I think because the supply chain issues have made it very complicated to nail down an actual schedule with the contractor.
So you're not gonna be, once that new plant gets online, you're not gonna be doing any filtering or anything up there?
Well, the new plant is right next to our existing.
Oh, it's in the
facility.
same location, okay.
Yes.
So we'll still be getting,
If you go back 3 slides, you can see the rendering.
no, I understand. I thought it was gonna be at that probe and I misunderstood.
No, it'll
Oh,
be
okay,
right
it's
next
gonna
to
be there,
this, so
okay.
it's.
So
in
it's
the
gonna be
same
there, so we're
location.
still gonna be, gotcha.
We're
Okay,
still gonna have treated water. Okay.
Yes,
good, good.
better treatment.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
Yeah, so we have
Okay.
a lot of space on campus where our slow sand filters are, so the plan is to demolish slow sand filters to make room for the new plant.
That's great. That's,
So we're fortunate to have that space.
Yeah.
I'll do everything on that probe. Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
We
now.
had
that's
to
good.
that.
We're happy with that. Yeah.
One thing to point out as well is this is our water before it's blended with our water. And we take samples in this building every 3rd quarter. So you can kind of compare what the results are from the water at Jerry Drive versus what's in this building on the same day. And I think in your packet, and it's
Yeah,
also on
you
the
have it in
website,
there.
there is a table. But I'll just look back at the last 3rd quarter of 2021. At Jerry Drive, Hale acetic acids was 92.3 parts per billion. And in this building, it was 4.9.
Right, I
So
saw
you can
that.
see it's after blending, it's very much well below the MCL threshold. So. But the way the regulations are written, we're required to test at the entry point. That's very good.
Cool.
Yeah, good. Did you want entertaining questions from the public? Yeah, go ahead. Just state your name, you don't mind,
Okay, my
and
name
address.
is Sandra Heath, and I live at 16 Lincoln Circle. I guess the question is, first of all, I always thought we gave water to Springfield. I didn't realize it was the other way, and I've been living here since 75, but for some reason, I thought it was the other way around. How do we know, we live in the same complex, what portion of the water we're getting that's mixed with our water? I mean, how do we know how safe we are, or what we should be doing with the problem with the water? I mean, we have drinking it, is that okay? We have little kids we take care of, is that okay for them to be drinking it? I mean, how do we know, is the mix for everybody in Southwick the same? Does every household have 90% Southwick water and 10% Springfield water, or is there a mixture?
So it's not, it's probably based on your location. So
Right.
those of you, so you're on College Highway North, right?
Right.
North of
Right.
Town Hall.
Right.
So the water you're drinking is primarily coming from Springfield. So the mixing happens really right in downtown here, where once it gets into the center of town.
So most of our water is their water?
I would say most of it, yes, yes.
So we got kind of a great deal there. And are you saying that you have a plant that is from 1920? And it would be helpful if it had been replaced, is that what you're saying? And I don't know, it was very hard to understand, because I'm not, that's not my background, but also it's just really quiet when you're talking. And being an older person, maybe I don't hear as well, but I couldn't really get the gist, but that, I thought I heard that about 1920.
Right, so there's two elements to the plant. We have the slow sand filters. Those date from the 1920s. So those were actually, we had them, when the plant was built, that was how it was built. And actually, there's lots of those in New England, like Hartford's system has those as well. We tend to use the slow sand filters in the summertime when we have peak production, but because we had an issue with the rapid sand filters, which were designed in the 1970s, we had to
Use the
use the soil sand filters.
So what was wrong with the 1970 ones?
It was a structural issue because of their design. They just, and frankly, the plant is old.
So that's being fixed also.
Yes, they're getting a whole new plant. And this plant was designed 10, 15 years before disinfection byproducts were discovered. And then we also have a context now of, we have more intense rainstorms more frequently.
Right.
And so the reservoirs, the water composition has changed and altered, and the plant just isn't capable of treating it like it was.
So there was nothing in the works to improve this before this happened?
Right, so
I understand the whole city thing, we all have our issues, but I'm just curious.
So the immediate issue that we're seeing as of January, as of this last quarter, is a result of that rapid sand plant filter failure that we have, and that we're working to fix by July. That's a short term.
Okay, so that
couple of
was
month issue.
Okay.
Yes, but we have a longer term issue where our disinfection byproduct levels are higher than we want them to be.
Right.
So we also have this larger plan to build a
Right.
treatment plant. We've been planning that project for the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, what do you say to us about the water usage?
So the health risk associated with disinfection byproducts is over decades or a lifetime. And I will say, like, when you look at CDC website, the science behind it isn't 100% conclusive, but because there's a potential risk, that's why we have these regulations. That's what drinking water regulations are for. But the risk associated, you have to drink it at elevated levels for 10, 20, many years before there is a potential health risk. And the other thing to keep in mind too is the MCL for disinfection byproducts is also set at a level. It's not set at the actual acute level where it would be immediately dangerous. They put a buffer in. So it's a long-term, the health risk is associated with long-term duration, but we never want to sacrifice chlorination for that because the risks with turning down the chlorine, which is again, disinfection byproducts form when chlorine mixes with.
Well, I never had city water until this year. I've always had a well. I never had to worry, obviously, because I didn't use chlorine and I didn't need it. But so you're saying it's okay. So this is not a Flint, Michigan thing. Okay, this is something that is going to be fixed. We can still drink the water.
We still drink the water. It's normal. Yeah. We shouldn't be filtering. We don't need to filter. We don't need to filter the water.
Filling does no good because it's a chemical. What about in town, like if you're going to encourage more businesses to come in, which we kind of want, and then use more water, would that make the system overrun in Southwick or overused or?
This has nothing to do with water,
Okay.
water usage. It's
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're right.
it's nothing to do with the quantity or volume that water is being consumed by town residents and town customers.
All right. Well, the thing that really surprised me is that you guys are all from Springfield, right? There are two of us from Southwick. And we all received this letter, which I thought was extremely important. And there are two of us here. And I just thought that was really surprising that more people didn't come and listen to what you had to say or just weren't concerned about their water. The other thing I had a question has nothing to do with Southwick, but do the people in Springfield have the same levels as we're having here? the high level, their water too? Yes?
Yeah. Depends
So-
on where, and it's different locations. but
Do they get letters and notices too?
They've been getting letters for what, past 3 years?
So
Trying
you,
to get all those.
yeah,
Okay.
you should expect more letters. Just that's the point. There are regularly more letters coming in, but it's all related to the same issue that we're dealing with today. But the way it's regulated and calculated, there will be more violations moving forward.
Right, and you have to send them out because legally.
Yes.
Right, we have to send them out.
Right.
yeah.
It's not a new issue. It's just a recurrence or a continuation of the same issue that we're facing.
And the public notices are good too, because they provide an update on. what's
Right,
going
on the level, yeah.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
what the levels are, disinfection byproducts, and also the steps that we're taking. Provides an update, town they did a real nice job in the public notice. A lot of good information in there.
And we have a website too. There's more information on the website. I encourage everybody to go take a look at that. All of our historical sample results going back to 2013 and 2014 are on the website. As well as some more literature and more links to Mass DEP and EPA and Springfield Water and Sewer. We'll post their handout, this presentation, we'll post on the website. I think even the video from today, I think we'll post that as well if we can. So our goal is to put information out there as best we can. And that'll be through the website.
We have to use Springfield water.
We do, so based
No
on,
offense. I just, no, I meant, it would be
so
nice if you could just use your own.
I agree, I
I
agree.
don't know.
But the way our water withdrawal permit is written, we have a cap on how much water we can withdraw from our own wells on a
Right.
given day and a given year.
Right,
And based on the usage in town, the town has grown considerably. And so we've exceeded those numbers. We can't support the entire town based on just our own well
so
source.
if we didn't use as much water in the town, people or whatever, we could just use our own water. Ideally,
Ideally, but we
Yes.
still, we do have the pump station on Jerry Drive. We run that pump every day, really mostly to keep the water fresh.
I just assumed the aquifer serviced all of us. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So- I'm learning a lot tonight. I'm kind of surprised by a couple of things.
No, I appreciate coming out. I'm surprised as well that only 2 people showed up,
I
honestly.
mean, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? All right.
Randy, we're happy to come back in the future too, if you want an update from the commission. We're happy to
Okay.
come back.
Sure, that'd be good,
Meet
yeah.
the board.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all your
Appreciate
time.
it,
It's,
yeah.
it's very, they all came out here. I really appreciate that. So thank you again. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, women, and you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. So, it's important.
Probably 2 minutes left, so if you want to stick around.
I have one.
Okay, old business.
Really nothing, let's talk about old business other than the water moratorium that's still in effect.
Right.
Our water project
Is
now
ongoing.
hopefully will
Yep.
resolve that in the next couple months. But our overall water usage in the last month has been as expected as normal.
Okay. New business.
Nothing else on my end.
Is there anything else to come before the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion to adjourn.
Ed Johnson, aye.
Hey, Mesro,
John Kane, aye.